was a pretty close shave that something didn't happen worse then, right? So we had a close shave there in the fact that everything stopped. Jesus healed the man, nobody else got hurt, but the Roman guards still took Jesus away. Now, Jesus had already been telling the disciples up to this point, hey, I'm going to be going away. I have to return to the one for the disciples. He was going to give his life for us. You guys ever played this game, the game of life?
Yes.
Is it fun? You guys like this game? Is it pretty fun? All right, so Jesus knew he was going to be giving his life. He knew what was about to happen as these guards took him away, okay? So he knew what was up. Now, at that time, the disciples got scared. And most of them just ran for it to hide. Because they didn't know exactly, they still didn't understand exactly what Jesus was about to go through. Okay? So Jesus was taken by these guards to a couple of high priests. One was named Annas, and one was named Caiaphas. Now these were high priests in the Jewish religion, so they were important, but they didn't quite have the power that they thought they did. So Jesus was brought before these guys, and they were asking him all kinds of questions. Are you the Son of God? Are you really God? Oh, why are you saying this? You're a blasphemer. And one of them, Caiaphas, asked, he said, I want you to tell me, by the name of the living God, are you the Messiah? And all Jesus said was, it is as you say. And this just made him so mad, because see, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, they hated Jesus. They had a burning hate. They hated him with a passion, to the fact that they wanted him gone. They wanted something done with him. This mess of Jesus, to get rid of it, to clean up. You know, you take a big towel, you clean up. We got to use these for the dogs all day long in our house. All day long. But they wanted it cleaned up. They wanted Jesus gone out of the picture. So they took him to the Roman government. And the man in charge, the governor in charge, was a man named Pilate. Everybody say Pilate.
Pilate.
Now Pilate, he looked at Jesus and he's like, well, what do you want me to do with this guy? This guy, and they're telling him, he's a blasphemer, he's a liar, he's a cheat. I'm telling you. So he listened. And he said, all right, pretty clearly that Jesus had done nothing wrong. Gotta get some nice clean windows, right? So you use your Windex so you can see it. But it was clear to him that Jesus had done no wrong. So he decided, well, hopefully I'll just beat Jesus. I'll have him beaten and whipped, and that'll satisfy everything. Well, that's not how it worked. Because what happened was, after he did that, this large crowd had started to gather outside. Now this large crowd was out there and they were screaming to Pilate, you need to get rid of Jesus! Kill him! Crucify him! Crucify him! He's not God! You need to do something, Pilate! And it just kept growing louder. And the crowd got bigger and bigger. And Pilate was like, I don't know what to do here. And even people with their bicycles showed up, see? They brought their dogs with them. So Pilate saw all this happening, and he didn't want anything to do with this huge crowd. So he just was like, guys, fine. If you want him crucified, then I'll crucify him. So he did. He told his Roman soldiers to take Jesus, and they beat him again. They whipped him, and they started the process of taking him to be crucified. In fact, when they took him, now remember, by this would have been mid-morning or so. By this time, Jesus wouldn't have eaten for maybe 24 hours close to. So he was pretty hungry. When they took him, they didn't give him anything to eat. Nothing to drink. I mean, he's already bleeding. He's already feeling probably dehydrated because he hasn't had any kind of water or anything. So it's just making him feel worse. Now, they took him to the prayer because they were going to crucify him. Now, when you crucified someone, you put them on basically a cross that looks like a smaller case T. It might look like something like this, okay? So, but Jesus still knew what was going on. Now remember, Jesus could have stopped this at any time. He could have said, the pain's too much. He could have said, you're not worth it. He could have said, these Roman soldiers deserve for me to call down angels from heaven and take care of them. But he didn't do that. Because once again, he was showing us the humility, putting us above himself, that he was going to go through with this. So the Roman soldiers prepared him, and they got the cross ready, and they got ready, and they took him up to a hill called Golgotha. Everybody say Golgotha. That's a place that's called the skull. The place of the skull. So it wasn't a good place because that's where they crucified everyone. So Jesus' love for us was measured in the fact that he still knew what was going to happen. And he was still going through it anyways. So they took him up on the hill. And they took him to be crucified. And they put nails in one hand. And then they put nails in his other hand. And then they put nails in his feet. Yeah, it probably was pretty loud like that. Imagine that going through your hands and your feet, though. Not just pounding on some piece of metal. So Jesus was nailed to the cross, and he was and he was dropped in to be crucified. Now remember, crucifixion just wasn't about the pain of being on a cross. You were suffocating to death. At this point in time, anybody ever get a cramp? You ever get a cramp? What it feels like to get a cramp? Does that feel very good? No. Usually you get a cramp because of the fact that you haven't had enough to drink or you need some water. Well, guess what? By this time, Jesus had nothing to eat. He would have had nothing to drink. So he probably would have been cramping up from his shoulders, his legs, whatever, and he didn't have any water or anything to drink himself. They didn't offer him anything to drink, so he would have been suffering just from muscle spasms and things like that at this point in time. So what they did give him is the only thing they gave him was a sponge that was filled with like vinegar. They put it on a stick. Jesus, wake up and smell the coffee and take all these Roman soldiers out. Because he could. Remember, Jesus has that power, doesn't he? He has the power to call down 10,000 angels to his aid. To John, this looked like it was like the final chapter of a book. You ever go and read the final chapter of a book first?
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah.
I know people who do that. I don't know why you do that. That's crazy. But that's what it looked like to John, is that this was the final chapter. He said, it is finished. He breathed his last and died. So what they did was, when they took him off the cross, a man named Joseph from Arimathea, everybody say Joseph from Arimathea. He asked permission to take Jesus and to put him in a tomb. So he got permission, they said yes, so he took him and he wrapped his body in linens. In that time, you would have wrapped the body up in just kind of like a mummy type of looking thing, where he'd wrap him up, put him in a tomb. He would have put him in a tomb. He would have put maybe some spices on his body. Now nowadays, we wouldn't have like a big tomb. We might have a casket that we would be put in, a box. So Jesus was put in the tomb, okay? And for everybody else, they thought, this is the end. Jesus is dead. We don't know what to do. In fact, all the disciples and everything were hiding and trying to stay out of the way of the Pharisees and Sadducees because they thought that they were going to be next. That now that Jesus has died, now that he's in the tomb, now that he's dead, and the tomb is sealed up, that they're going to kind of come after him. But 3 days later, Mary Magdalene takes some of the spices and things that I was just talking about to tend to Jesus' body in the tomb. And when she got there, the tomb was open. and it was empty. And she didn't know what to do about this. In fact, she took off and ran to find the disciples. She knew where they were at. So she took off to find the disciples, and she all the disciples were together, and they were eating in an upper room. They were still a little bit afraid. They still weren't sure what was going to happen, because they still felt like, well, there's a good possibility that they're still going to come after us. See, they weren't realizing yet that death couldn't hold Jesus. That death couldn't control him. We use things like hair gel and stuff like that to make our hair look good. Does my hair look good today? Things still seem pretty dark. They still didn't realize what was happening. They still didn't get it completely. They didn't realize what had happened with the cross just yet. Now guys, here's the big point. Here's the part about today that's really important that we need to remember. Because Jesus showed up to the disciples in that upper room. That he was alive. And he talked to them. And they couldn't believe it. And they realized that Jesus had done what he said he was going to do. That he was alive.